Hello, everyone, and welcome back to day two of the 2025 Revitalize Your Midlife Symposium. So, if you missed yesterday, we had an amazing speaker, Debbie Robinson, talking about bone health. And I wanted to give you a little background on the symposium if this is your first time watching. This event is designed to inspire, empower, and enlighten us all as we navigate the intriguing journey of midlife together. June isn't just about marking the arrival of summer, my favorite time of the year. It's also celebrating my birthday month. And yes, I'm one of those people that celebrates all month. I just am. But this symposium is a testament to my personal belief that everyone deserves the right to feel good in their body and my ongoing commitment to lifelong learning. Midlife is a period ripe with reflection, growth, and most importantly, opportunity. It's a phase where we can leverage our past experiences, welcome change, and confidently stride into our best selves. My aim with this symposium is to equip you with the tools, insights, and motivation to successfully maneuver this thrilling chapter, yes, I said thrilling, of our lives. And if you leave this event with even one piece of valuable information, I'll consider this symposium a triumph. I'm pleased to announce that this year's symposium is sponsored by Small Space Pilates and the Sisters in Service podcast. If you're watching live, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them and we will try to answer them while we're live with our guests. But don't worry if you are unable to join us in real time, every moment of the Revitalize Your Midlife Symposium will be available for replay. And if you have questions after the fact, I'll make sure that our next guest gets those questions. So without further ado, I'm absolutely delighted to present our distinguished guest, Patricia Faust. Patricia is a highly respected gerontologist specializing in the areas of brain aging, brain health, brain function, and dementia. She knows a lot, you guys. Her extensive academic background, which includes a master's in gerontological studies from Miami University and certifications in brain health, coaching, and neuroscience and wellness, which all equips her with a deep well of knowledge. So I'm saying, ask your questions. In 2015, Patricia launched the My Boomer Brain, which is a dedicated platform through which she educates, coaches, and consults on all aspects of brain aging, health, and function. And she later came out with a book. She's the author of The Boomer Brain, which is a comprehensive guide that offers boomers essential strategies for maintaining a healthy brain and achieving successful longevity. So I have the privilege of bringing to you today Patricia Faust. Patricia, welcome.
Well, hi. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really looking forward to this.
Oh, girl, I got some questions for you.
Well, good, 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 good.
So I do have to be transparent in the fact that it was about a year or so ago when I did my first symposium, and I really was thinking about all the things that we do and don't do that affect our brain. So I'm so happy that you're here to answer any questions and to give us some insight into brain health. So my first question, Patricia, is how did you become so involved with brain health and brain aging?
I went back to school to get my master's degree when I was 50,
Mhm.
and it was in gerontology. I went focusing on dementia. That was what I really wanted to work with when I got finished with school. And it all changed by the time I got out of school, but I had really an interest in how the brain works. And I
Mhm.
happened to be at a big conference in San Francisco, I believe, around 2008. And there was a company called Posit Science. They now have Brain HQ. People might be familiar with Brain HQ. But at this conference, they were introducing their brain fitness program. And I learned the very beginnings of the fact that we can change our brains no matter how old we are. So I could never say we could prevent dementia or Alzheimer's, but I could say at that time we could delay it. And so I just really immersed myself in it because before that, there was no hope as you were growing older.
Mhm.
And so I thought, well, this this has got to be everybody's got to be excited about
Mhm.
this.
Absolutely. I think there's just been so much more about dementia and Alzheimer's and what you can do and what you can't do and what's necessary, what's unnecessary. So my question is, first and foremost, what's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia?
Well, dementia is the big umbrella,
Mhm.
and Alzheimer's is a form of dementia. It's the largest form of dementia, but you also have frontotemporal lobe dementia. That's what Bruce Willis has. And you have vascular dementia. And there's a number of different categories that fit under this umbrella. It's just Alzheimer's is the big one. And so, but it is a dementia.
So this can affect any part of the brain. It's just not, because I thought it was just the whole brain, but it can affect just different parts of the brain, which might speak to how people have no short-term memory, but have very good long-term memory. Is that correct?
So here's the way it normally works. The different dementias do affect different parts of the brain. Vascular dementia is all about blood flow.
Mhm.
And, you have vascular problems in your legs, or you have heart conditions and you have vascular problems there. That all translates to an increased risk of having vascular problems in your brain. Alzheimer's really hits the two areas that we use the most in our brain. It hits the prefrontal cortex, which is this area right behind our forehead that directs everything. It's the executive function center of our brain. It does all our rational thinking. It's the first place where memory starts. It
Mhm.
really is the workhorse of the brain. And the second place it hits is the hippocampus, which is deep brain. You have one on each side, so hippocampi. And this is the center of learning and memory. So when Alzheimer's hits, you start to lose volume. It's not cell volume so much as it is the connections in the brain. And normal aging causes a significant amount of shrinkage of the brain too, just normal aging loss.
Mhm.
So it's really it was such like a miracle to learn that we can replace. Well, actually, in midlife, you can replace. I'm a boomer, so I'm recovering. I'm working hard to get out of the hole to get back the losses I sustained as I got older.
Mhm.
But that's one of the best parts about midlife. Your brain stays really, really high level through the 30s, and you at around age 30, that massive growth that occurred when you were born and up until the 30s
Mhm.
sort of slows down to a trickle. So you've created all these connections and they are serving
Mhm.
you really well. It's created a lot of extra connections, so if you lose some, you don't feel it. And in the 40s, this is when you're really starting to notice that you're not quite as sharp as you were, that tip of the tongue, you can't remember somebody's name. It starts to get a little disturbing. I always tell a story. I'm a clinical aromatherapist also, and I was giving a presentation to a pharmaceutical company. And I had given this presentation a bunch of times, and it was in a big theater, and I was standing in the middle of it, and I lost a word. I was in my 40s. I lost a word, and it's like, "Oh, no." I could feel the sweat, running down my back. I'm trying to think of the word, yet then I'm also trying to work my way around that word so I can keep
Mhm.
going. It was horrible, and the
Mhm.
word popped into my head as soon as presentation was finished,
Of
but
course.
those are the things that start to happen to you when you're in your 40s, because
Mhm.
now you're not making all those connections like you were up
Mhm.
through the 30s. Now what you're losing, you're using up the cognitive reserve that you had,
Mhm.
and so now you're starting to feel the losses. And it's not
Wow.
significant, but it is the best time, the
Mhm,
very best time to start a brain healthy
mhm.
lifestyle because it's easier. It's easier to
Yes.
do, and it's easier to reclaim the losses that
Mhm.
you're sustaining.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and
we're
I got
boomer
really,
sisters,
really involved
Patricia.
with that.
I just said we're boomer sisters, so I'm a boomer too. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I I I
we're
get
flowing
it.
now, Kat.
So Patricia, what are some significant factors that contribute to brain aging other than aging? Are there things that we do that or don't do that can contribute to either dementia or a form of or even Alzheimer's?
Well, let's just put it this way. The risk of getting Alzheimer's is is due to 70% of lifestyle. How you live your
Mm,
life is the highest risk factor for developing Alzheimer's or any of the other dementias. It's amazing to me because we always thought, oh, it's genetics, it's environment. Well, genetics and environment do play a role. They're the other
yes.
30% combined. And for the
Mhm,
most part, when I first started doing this and they weren't talking about brain health in 2009 and 10, so everybody was,
wow.
oh, my mom had Alzheimer's, I'll probably get it too. And I still hear that. But the real idea around all of this is that we're not condemned to getting Alzheimer's disease. If you have ApoE4, you've got the double genes from each parent. That is, you're going to get Alzheimer's. That's
Mhm,
non-modifiable. The
mhm,
other genes that are involved with it, it's lifestyle will override the genetic
mhm,
risk that you have. You might still have a slim risk,
mhm,
but it depends on how you live your life if that risk
mhm.
is really going to kick into gear. And so
Yes.
we have a whole lot more control over this than we
Then
ever,
we
ever
think.
knew.
Yeah. I always say that, being a movement specialist, I always say that movement is
Yeah.
like a shot of adrenaline to your brain. Your
Yes.
brain just goes, it starts to fire. And so, when people say, oh, I don't like to exercise, they don't read, they don't do anything but scroll on their phone and stuff like that, that causes, and I heard this, and let me know if you've heard this, digital dementia. Have you heard of that?
No, but I like it, and I think it's very true. I think it's
I do
very
too.
true. Well, let me tell you what happens when you exercise. Your brain is an energy cannibal, but it doesn't have its own energy source.
Mhm,
So when you exercise, you're sending 20% of the blood, oxygen, and carbs from each and every heartbeat to your brain. It demands that much. But if you're not exercising, your brain's not pushing it hard enough to
mhm,
really make a significant difference. And so you feel lethargic and you don't want to
mhm.
get up and move. You have a hard time thinking. But when you get up and move, and we're actually hardwired to move. Our prehistoric ancestors had to be on the move all the time or they were
All the
eaten.
time. Yes.
And that was significant enough for survival that it became part
Mhm.
of our DNA. So
Yes.
we also have that DNA. And it's really incumbent on us to be able to give our brain what it needs. The other thing that happens when you're sending all that blood, carbs, and oxygen to your brain is when it hits the prefrontal cortex, this really important initial part of the brain, you are releasing a neurochemical called BDNF, brain derived
Mhm,
neurotrophic factor. And that starts the birth of new neurons, baby neuron stem cells. So if you're not exercising, you're not creating more brain
mhm.
cells.
Yeah.
And so exercise is critical to a healthy brain,
Mhm.
critical.
Well,
They
you
said if
heard
you're
it
sitting
here
right,
first, folks.
one of the comparisons that they made is if you sit all day in front of a computer, in front of a TV, it's like smoking a pack of cigarettes.
Mhm.
It's that dangerous for your brain.
I've heard of that also.
Yeah.
And you heard it here with this woman right here. I've always said movement is important to your brain. Patricia, can you are there any common misconceptions about brain health that you've heard or that people have told you? Are there anything that people believe that's just not true?
Um, well, you're not gonna get it by a pill. There's no there's no secret sauce, there's no magic
Mhm.
pill that's going to give you a younger, higher functioning brain. So that's one thing.
Exactly.
Everybody
Yeah.
keeps looking for that,
Yes.
and there's just it's not there.
Yeah.
The other thing is people just don't believe me. When I talk to them about this, it's like
Mhm.
they blow it off.
Mhm.
And then they're gonna be the people that are gonna be devastated when they have, dementia or Alzheimer's.
Right.
So it gets a little frustrating when you're telling them all you're all
Mhm.
excited about how they can take care of their brain, and you're
Mhm.
telling them all this exciting stuff, and they, "Yeah, okay." It's like
Mhm.
I get so deflated when I hear that, "Yeah, okay" response because
I
it's like,
get the same response about exercise, Patricia. People like, "Oh, you're a personal trainer. Oh, okay." I'm like, "Wow, okay."
well, and
So
as a
I get
personal
it.
trainer, you understand,
Mhm.
how we really wear down when we're getting
Mhm.
older, and
Mhm.
it's you have to work hard to stay healthy when you're older. It
Yes,
doesn't come easy, and you have to be committed and dedicated to it. And I don't think
absolutely.
I think people get too lazy about that. They're complacent. They'd rather sit
Mhm.
and, look at their phone,
Yeah.
watch the TV. And that's especially true after they retire when they don't have anything else
Mhm.
to fill their life.
Absolutely.
But
But
again, when you're in midlife, it's the best time
mhm.
to really get into the habit of these practices.
Mhm.
Then you'll just be doing it automatically.
Exactly. So, Patricia, what are some daily habits that we can do to positively impact our brain health?
Well, let me just tell you the parts of the brain healthy lifestyle
Mhm.
because you really it needs to be incorporated into your life. So physical exercise is the first one. The second one
Mhm.
is mental challenge, mental stimulation. You're
Mhm.
starting to create these new little neurons, but you have to create the new connections. When our brains start tricking as we get older, it's not the neurons that we're losing, it's all of the nerve fibers that we're losing. They're the ones that make
Mhm.
everything happen in your brain,
Mhm.
and they start to deteriorate if we are not continually challenging our brain and repairing and creating new nerve fibers
Mhm.
to replace that loss of volume that we get as we naturally
Mhm.
age. That is neuroplasticity at its finest. And when
Mhm.
you get a nice, rich, new covering of nerve fiber connections, your is again starting to function on all cylinders. It
Mhm.
just takes a lot of work to get to that point. So you
Mhm.
really need to do something. And when I challenge your brain, it doesn't have to be academically. Read
Right.
a good book. It becomes
Mhm.
harder to read a good book and remember what you read. So you have to learn some new tricks too in order to get the most value out of what you're doing.
Mhm.
But do a day trip to a little place around you that you've never been to. Maybe it has
Mhm.
shops, and in my area, there's Yellow Springs, Ohio is not that far from us, and it's a real
Mhm.
eclectic little place, and it's so much
Mhm.
fun to go in and see the artisans and be able to have some different types of foods.
Mhm.
But your brain loves that because you're lighting it up by
Mhm.
experiencing new things. It's
New
making
stuff.
you remember even
Mhm.
more. So you can't just create the new cells, you have to
Mhm.
create the new connections. Then you have to eat right. Nutrition is
Mhm.
going to become the centerpiece of a brain healthy lifestyle. All of the research is just starting to expound on nutrition. We have a brain in our gut, the enteric brain.
Mhm.
We have one in our head, the cranial brain, one in our heart, the cardiac brain, and one in our gut, the enteric brain. Well, the enteric brain actually sends more signals out than the cranial brain does.
Mhm.
And they're just learning so much about the microbiome. And it
Yes.
is really determining a lot about our brain health.
Mhm.
So this is exciting and it's new, and it's
Mhm.
new things are happening every day on this.
Mhm.
It's really good to get in the habit of eating brain healthy foods. So if you're familiar with the Mediterranean diet, that's what the first brain healthy diets were based over, and it still fits really well. They
Mhm.
took the DASH diet, which is a blood pressure diet for heart, and merged it with the Mediterranean diet to get the mind diet. So
Mhm.
you're doing a little more heart healthy. I mean, what's good for
Mhm.
your heart is good for your brain. I mean, your brain
Right.
wouldn't be anything if your heart wasn't working right. So
That's true.
the mind diet really gives you a nice
Mhm.
variety of foods to eat. It again, it's more based around, dark red skin fruit, dark leafy
Mhm.
green vegetables, more vegetables and fruit than,
Mhm.
cut your red meat down to minimum. Get a lot of
Yeah.
omega-3 fatty acids like in
Mhm.
um, fatty fish, like salmon or tuna.
Mhm.
Use olive oil. It's dark chocolate's good for you.
Yeah.
Coffee's good for you. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some real surprises in it. We used to say red wine's good for you, but now the Alzheimer's Association and all the other agencies are saying no alcohol is good for you. And
That's sad
so
face, man.
I know. And I just gave a presentation to a group of older seniors, and it's like, "What?" When I told them that, and I said, "Well,
Mhm.
I don't know how well that's going to be followed,
Mhm.
but if you really need to get a little bit of alcohol, for women, it's 1 drink a day.
Mhm.
You can't save them all up for the weekend, and for men, it's 2." And so
Yeah.
they can have 2 drinks a day, but that would
Mhm.
be the max, and that's what they
Mhm.
were, giving as
Mhm.
guideline, but now they cut it all back to nothing.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I have found is learning something new. Be a
Mm,
beginner at something. Learn something you've never done before because, I started my business almost 3 years ago and I'm learning things. There are times when my brain is like, I'll talk to my husband. I'll go, "Do you smell smoke? I think my brain's on fire," because I'm
I love
learning things, I'm really, and I have good days and bad days, but I just think that when you kind of cut back and say, I want to be a learner. I want to be new at something. And I think that has a whole lot to do not only for your brain, but for
Oh,
your entire body. Get
exactly,
whatever brings you joy. So,
right.
but
I think that what, a lot of people go into retirement thinking, "Oh, it's time to relax and, play
Mhm.
some golf." Well, that gets real boring after a few months,
Yeah, right.
and because you don't have that social support anymore, you tend to become
Mhm.
more depressed
Mhm.
because you need to be with other people. It's really
Yes.
critical. You need to be with
Yes.
other people. But if they haven't defined what their next passion and purpose are going to be, then
Mhm.
they get lost. And for a lot of CEOs, they die
Yes.
because their health just collapses.
Mhm.
So it's important to understand how
Mhm.
critical it is to continue to learn.
Mhm.
I mean, I went to grad school when I was 50. My classmates were 25, and I was like a deer in headlights. It's like, oh, they were so smart and so fast at everything. And it's like,
Mhm.
what did I do? But my brain caught up,
Mhm.
and I felt younger. I actually felt
Mhm.
younger. I come back to my family and friends who are all my age. It's like, oh my God, you guys, all you talk about is how sick you are. And I was around young
Exactly.
people all the time, and they're
Mhm.
energetic and vivacious, and that energy wears off on you.
Mhm.
So it's important to look for something that you're passionate about. Doesn't matter what
Mhm.
it is.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
Volunteer, find something you love to
Mhm.
do. Get another job. Anything that
Mhm.
again challenges you
Yeah. I have a
and your
question
brain
for you,
wants it.
Patricia. I heard you say we've got our brain, we have our heart, we have three brains, our
Yes.
microbiome, in our stomach, our heart, and our brain. And I also heard you say that a lot of people who retire, if you don't use your brain, does that affect your heart? I mean, are
Yes.
they all like connected like this?
Well, your heart depends on your brain as much as
Mhm,
your brain depends on your heart. They are
mhm, mhm,
interconnected because your brain wouldn't function without the action of the heart.
mhm,
So if you're not getting up and you're not moving and you're not eating well, you've got your cholesterol starting to go up, your blood pressure starting to go up,
mhm.
you could be in trouble for vascular dementia. If you have to take better care of yourself. I've heard some really
Yourself,
bad
yes.
stories lately about people around my age who
Mhm.
just sit around and watch TV all day,
Yes.
and they get depressed because they're not, I mean, there's no motivation in their life, and sitting around watching TV is they're bored,
Mhm.
and their health is deteriorating, and then they don't know why that's happening.
Yeah.
So it's that our systems work so much together.
Together, yes.
And so we have to understand that we have to take good care of our heart, good heart
Mhm.
health, in order to have good brain health.
Yes.
And again, the gut is doing more than we ever imagined it would do.
Mhm.
And so that plays a major, major role in it too.
Yes.
So learning about how your brain ages and what you need to
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
is really critical for successful age. Well, I hate saying successful aging. I'm going to write an
Mhm.
article about that because there's a lot of successful isn't a good word, but
Mhm.
active aging or sense not well, exciting aging.
Exciting. Yeah, make it sound like dynamic where people just say, I want what is that? I want some of that over there, you know? So I
Well, when
think
you
I
get
think it's
yourself involved,
important.
yeah. I mean, it was
Mhm.
exciting for me to go back to school. And then
Mhm.
when I started learning about brain health, it was not a thing. Nobody was teaching it. There
Mhm.
were a few people that were actually practicing it, and I sought them out. For
Mhm.
5 years, I found every mentor I could find to learn
Mhm.
about brain health and to and I taught myself. And then I was
Mhm.
able to get into a, neuroscience and wellness,
Mhm.
at the Neuroscience Academy, Dr. Sarah
Mhm.
McKay, and I happened to meet her through a brain group. And that
Yeah.
was one of the first times that she lives in Australia, and they didn't have Zoom.
Mhm.
Well, I forget what the the online video were, but it was
Mhm.
rough.
Yeah.
But,
I have a
I mean, now
question
it's a
for
hot
you.
topic, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
information out about it now, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of people telling you what you need to do.
Yeah.
Um
Here's a question for you, Patricia. If someone has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's,
mhm.
is there anything they can do to stop it or slow it down?
Yeah, there is. I have a team, for the Walk to End Alzheimer's, and so I'm getting ready to send out my fundraising letters,
Mhm.
and I've done this for 8 years. And the Alzheimer's Association is involved in research. They also
Mhm.
help with support and caregiving and education, and so they really wrap their arms around those who have Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
Well, the research lately has given us some good things finally. And
Mhm.
now FDA approved a blood test that will diagnose Alzheimer's and at what stage you're in. Now, before you either had to have an autopsy or
Oh.
PET scan, or I mean, there was no definitive way to diagnose it. They would
Mhm.
say, well, yeah, it looks like it is, but we can't say for
Mhm.
sure. And they were sent around all these different specialists. Well, this blood test will do that. That's brand new,
Mhm.
brand new.
That's
FDA just
huge.
approved it last month.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, and having an early diagnosis is really critical.
Mhm.
That was the one thing I was studying when I was in grad school. What was the research looking at? And they had
Mhm.
nothing then, nothing.
Right.
And at the end point, there was nothing you could do. So they
Mhm.
started looking at research that would be effective in the early stages of the disease to hold because you're
Mhm.
highly functional and
Right.
to hold you in that early stage, hopefully until
Mhm.
you died from other causes. And so there's 2 drugs out now that are
Mhm.
targeted strictly for early stage Alzheimer's, and they do slow down the process.
Mhm.
Now, I've got somebody I'm working with who was just diagnosed, and he's in early stage. He's freaking out. So is his wife. And so I'm going to coach with him. He's getting the
Mhm.
medicine. They're doing a few more tests. It's brand new.
Mhm.
But I'm going to coach with him on the lifestyle because there's a lifestyle can actually help you recover some of the losses you're sustaining from Alzheimer's.
That's good to
But
know.
you have to be really diligent about it and follow it
Mhm.
strictly, but you can start to reverse it.
Mhm.
There was a study years ago called the Nun Study. Have you ever heard of that one?
No.
It was a cloistered group of nuns in Kentucky, and they donated their brains to the University of Kentucky Medical School in Lexington.
Mhm.
And what the researchers found there is that there were some nuns who had all technically had Alzheimer's. I mean, that's what their brains showed. They had,
Mhm.
you know, plaques and blockages, but they never showed any signs of it when they were alive. None.
Wow.
And so the lifestyle they led was is what did that for them.
Mhm.
So they were able to continue to create more and more healthy, parts of the brain,
Mhm.
so that the parts that were being damaged were actually being replaced.
Yeah. I have a
And
question for you,
mhm,
Patricia. So, usually in day to day, we people say, "Oh, I've got my keys. I must have Alzheimer's." That you say things. Can you give us, a kind of a snapshot of a typical something that people, who have Alzheimer's, what they do, as
mhm.
opposed to dementia?
Well, dementia is very close to this. I mean, they're having
Yes.
like vascular dementia, the same thing.
Hmm.
My husband's cousin, when she was in her early 60s,
Hmm.
was in an airport. Her son lived in Alaska. She was in an airport, and all of a sudden, she didn't know where she was. I mean, she couldn't find her way back to her mom, who was there. They were flying together, and she got lost in the airport. And she had been struggling before that, but nothing as dramatic as that. And she had
Hmm.
vascular dementia. Now, the signs show up a little bit differently. With Alzheimer's, though, the 2 areas that are hit are the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus. When you can't get memory in, you have no
Hmm.
short-term memory capability.
Hmm.
It's just not transferring down the hippocampus, the center of learning and memory. But what you have long-term memory available to you
Hmm.
because that's already encoded in your brain.
Yes.
And so you're more like if they have a cue to recall that, they will be able to recall
Hmm.
the long-term memory.
Hmm.
It depends on how fast the deterioration happens. When you look at like an MRI of a normal brain and someone who
Hmm.
has Alzheimer's, the Alzheimer's brain is about one third the size of a normal brain. It's you lose that so much is
You lose
damaged,
it. Yeah.
and that's
Wow.
why you become incapable of you know
Hmm.
body functions, speaking. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a devastating disease.
Yes,
And their
I didn't
brains are
know that you
below.
could die from dementia.
Can you die from
I said
dementia?
I said I didn't know that you could because your body just forgets what to do. Is that correct?
Yeah, your organs don't function right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, you definitely die from it. It's a
That's
long,
yeah.
protracted death.
Oh,
It's so horrible for families
yeah.
because, and here's the bad part about it. The boomers are so big, and now
Hmm.
we're in the more vulnerable years of
Hmm.
discovering we have Alzheimer's. And the numbers are up to 7 million now in the United States. And
Hmm.
that's due to our burgeoning size. Now,
Yes.
we talked about this a long time ago, and it was like the elephant in the room.
Hmm.
And nobody would make any, plans for what are we going to do when all of these people are sick. because the
Yes.
medical complex can't handle it. And now that there's so many people being deported, healthcare is not going to
Mhm.
be able to handle it because there's not going to be caregivers.
Yeah.
And so we're in a sort of a critical state. So, but if you understand how you can start to recover from it,
Mhm.
you have to do it early. Once the damage is too significant, then you can't really
Mhm.
recover that. Then you just, then it just
Mhm.
goes. But if you like an early diagnosis, it's so important that you learn how to live this lifestyle in order to
Mhm.
stay the healthiest you can stay. And it's amazing.
Absolutely.
I mean, people
Yeah.
are doing that. For many years, they're
Mhm.
living a functional life with
Mhm.
Alzheimer's in the early stages.
Mhm. Do you
So,
find that people are talking about it more now than back in the day? You
oh
know,
yeah,
people would whisper about it, you know. But you think
yeah,
that people are more out about it because they want to know, they want the information.
yeah. They're also afraid,
Mhm.
and because they're hitting the ages
Mhm.
where, and they're getting these aging losses that are terrifying if you don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
Forgetting your keys is just, you don't pay attention. One of the things that happens when you get older is you lose your distraction filters. So you
Mhm.
don't stay focused on what you want to do. And you don't pay attention because with all distractions coming at you,
Mhm.
you don't keep your attention on what you want to remember. And so
Exactly.
a lot of people think they're forgetting things when they never made the memory in the first place. And
Exactly.
that's scary to them because
Mhm.
it's like, I can't remember anything anymore. Well, probably it takes a lot to make a memory up front. It takes
Mhm.
a lot. And when you get older, you are not doing as well
Mhm.
to do the important things to make
Mhm.
that memory actually make it in to be encoded.
Mhm.
So, but
Well,
they don't understand that. I talk a
yeah,
lot to people about that.
I do have to tell you, I work at a couple studios for Pilates, and there are times when I've come home and I think, did I lock the door? I've gone all the way back,
Yeah.
and a lot of times I've locked it. Well, now I have a hack. So if it's a bottom lock, I go like this 3 times. Don't ask me why three. And then if I lock the top, I push and pull 3 times. Don't ask me why it's three, but then I know for sure. It's almost like it's a thing to my brain going, you lock the door.
Well, and those are the things you have to do when you get older. I
Hmm.
teach a memory course, total memory workout course. It's about 5 weeks long, and I teach all those little tools and strategies because you're not remember your brain is not working at the capacity it used to work. You can work really hard to recover, but there's parts of your brain that have already deteriorated that you haven't recovered yet. And that's the tip of the tongue, it's not registering fast enough. I lose words a little more, but I know they're going to pop back in, so I don't freak out about it. I just go on and then it pops
Hmm.
back in. But I mean,
Yes.
you have to accept some of these aging problems
Hmm.
and not get really upset and understand. But as long as you're doing everything you need to do
Hmm.
to start to recover. Now, the losses with Alzheimer's are definitely more severe. Instead of losing their keys might be in the freezer,
Hmm.
or they can't remember where they lived,
Hmm.
and they wander. And that's really
Hmm.
dangerous. And there's just all different kinds of more catastrophic things that
Hmm.
they do, which makes you indicate that they aren't capable of living by themselves anymore because they're
Absolutely.
not functional.
Hmm.
And, that's a danger to them.
Hmm.
And so those are hard and a lot of families
Hmm.
don't want to recognize that. And then
So
they
if
get
you're a
all,
caregiver, so let's say my mom is living with me and
mhm,
I'm her caregiver.
mhm.
What kind of things should I look out for in thinking that, okay, maybe this is more than just I forgot my keys somewhere or I can't find my phone or something like that?
Well, if she can't take care of her bills,
Hmm.
doesn't remember that she has bills to pay, or
Hmm.
is And it's a big scam target because if she answers the phone, it's so
Mhm.
easy to convince them to send money. There's a
Yes.
lot of Medicare scams on that too, and they know they have
Mhm.
Medicare, but this person's talking them into something they don't need.
Mhm.
Those are the things that I would be most concerned about. Um, Not knowing, it's not just knowing where we all forget where we put stuff down. And so
Mhm.
what I say is you created a habit with locking your door. Well, have
Mhm.
a forget me not spot by the front door when you come in or go
Mhm.
out. Put your keys on that little
Mhm.
table or your phone. If you have to
Mhm.
take something with you the next morning, put it there on the table. If it's something
Mhm.
that is in the refrigerator, put a post-it note on your door
Mhm.
because we don't remember, we're in a hurry or we just don't
Mhm.
remember all that stuff. We're thinking about a ton of other things. And with someone who has more of a problem with that, they don't even have to be thinking about a whole lot of other things. They just don't remember
Mhm.
where they put things. And
Yeah.
so the more that becomes an issue, it's better to take someone in for a checkup, primarily to a geriatrician. Now, I just read an
Mhm.
article, geriatricians there's not enough. But now
Mhm.
a new nurse practitioners are taking over that role of geriatricians where they're really
Mhm.
looking because there's specific things you look for in an aging person that you don't look for in a younger person. And a
Right.
lot of times primary care docs don't differentiate between between that. So
Mhm.
this aging society is going to be put a lot of pressure on everybody.
Yes.
But families sometimes are too afraid to find out if, mom
Yeah.
has
They don't
all.
want to know the answer. They don't want to ask the question because they don't want to know the answer.
Exactly, and that's
Yeah.
even worse because by the time they finally do take him to the doc, it becomes so
Mhm.
much of a problem because then mom or dad is not willing to,
Mhm.
their behavior now is becoming a little more
Right.
erratic, and they're not willing to maybe have to move
Mhm.
to a care facility. And if you do it when they're so much better, when they're younger, they
Mhm.
can help make the decisions on everything that's going. They have better concept of it, and it's so much easier on the family. You can't be afraid to tell your parents.
Absolutely.
So,
Here's a question for you, Patricia.
mhm.
So, what are some of the challenges you've had and the rewards of working in the field of gerontology?
I love gerontology.
I
I
can
got
tell.
well, I there's a lot of other parts to it that, I kept finding stuff that I loved, and it's like, "Oh, I wanna do this. No, I wanna do this. I wanna do
Mhm.
this." I worked for an area agency on aging for about 3 years as an aging in place director, and it was more than just, working with, home modifications or any of those
Mhm.
things. It was more about it's small, we covered 5 counties, but it's more in rural
Mhm.
Indiana. So this was more about what do you do about farmers who they won't have, Social Security because
Mhm.
they always had their farms.
Right.
And what happened is these farms were passed on to their kids and to their kids, but if they go into a nursing home and there's hardly any home care out because they're so spread out,
Mhm.
they they end up losing their farms because you
Yeah.
have to pay that asset back. You get
Mhm.
Medicaid while you're there, but that's not covering anything. And so these people were losing their family farms because they
Wow.
were admitted to a nursing home.
Mhm.
So one of the first things I did when I started at the agency was put together an elder law symposium. So
Mhm.
I live in Indiana, and so there was an elder law attorney who came in from Indianapolis to
Mhm.
talk to all these people, and the place was packed,
Packed.
just packed. There's
Wow.
not Back then there weren't that many elder law attorneys. There was one in
Mhm.
5 counties where I live. Right now,
Mhm.
that's becoming, because again, the boomers,
Yes.
the boomers numbers are big. There's quite a few elder law
Mhm.
attorneys. I also talked to financial planners. I had a program for them called Financial Planning Aging Clients,
Mhm.
so that they would be on the alert of, if is their client developing dementia, what signs should they look for? How can they determine?
Mhm.
Because they can go in and talk to you about old stuff, and and
Mhm.
people do that. They do that to their docs. They talk about old friends, and and
Mhm.
so they look
Yeah.
like they're really with it, but they can't
And they're
answer the.
really not. Yeah.
And so talking to financial planners about how
Mhm.
to work with your aging clients, the different things
Mhm.
that you need to be aware of and need to be prepared to do.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, it is a big deal. It is a big
Yeah.
deal. So those are the things. And then also
Mhm.
there's a little river town um, in Madison, Indiana, and I
Mhm.
would go down there, and they helped with the agency helped them. They were setting up a food kitchen, and they had a lot of aging people that lived in this community. I mean, they
Mhm.
had a lot of poor. It was a very poor area, and so, but putting together their senior center and giving them a place to come that they could learn about resources. It's just getting the word
Mhm.
out to the people who live there.
Mhm.
The other thing that, this town, it's a little touristy town. The riverboats stop there, and there's a lot of little
Mhm.
cute little stores and stuff. Well, their main street is so wide, nobody can cross it before the light turns.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
said, "You need to do something because older people
Mhm.
cannot get across that street when it
Not
turns
that
that
fast.
quickly."
Yeah.
I said, "You really have to
Mhm.
slow that down."
Yeah.
And the mayor said, "Well, yeah, my mom's having a hard time getting across that street."
Cross two. Yeah.
So it's things like that. How is the
Mhm.
aging community doing?
Mhm.
Because and all of the mixed use buildings that they're doing now, that was one of the
Mhm.
original suggestions, because they
Mhm.
didn't want older people to be driving. And so
Right.
take a mall, which they're doing, and make it
Mhm.
mixed use, and they can live there, they can walk to wherever they need to go. You need to put up
Mhm.
some environment, little small parks and
Mhm.
stuff, have their medical doctors nearby. Everything was in reach. They can
In
do their
reach. Yeah. So
shopping,
they didn't
they
have to
can have their
drive.
entertainment.
Yeah.
Now, most of the mixed use are in younger, like in downtown Cincinnati, but they're all
Mhm.
younger professionals who are living
Mhm.
down there. But that was one of the big
Mhm.
suggestions for an aging population, and
Mhm.
bike trails, get them moving. We just
Yes.
talked about how important that
Yes.
is.
Patricia, what kind of resources, if I'm really concerned that about my brain health, what kind of resources would you recommend for me?
I Have you ever heard of Brain HQ?
Mm-mm.
Okay, Brain HQ is, well, they call it brain fitness training. I learned about it at that conference I went to, and
Mhm.
what th- the chief science officer there, Dr. Michael Mersnick, is the original father of neuroplasticity. It was his research
Mhm.
that found out about neuroplasticity. And
Mhm.
so he was doing programming for kids with dyslexia. And then his mother had Alzheimer's. And she said, I
Mhm.
need to do something for adults, brain training for adults to help them recover. So
Yes.
the first ones were really, it was like brain rehab for sure.
Mhm.
But then they
Yeah.
started putting them in gaming programming,
Mhm.
and it's not easy gaming. I'm gonna start the third year of work. I had long COVID, so I had bad brain
Mhm.
fog. And so I'm working I continue to work my way out of this brain fog.
Mhm.
But these particular games work with focus, attention,
Mhm.
memory, navigation.
Mhm.
There's another one in there too. There's 5 or 6 different categories, and it
Mhm.
runs you through all of these different levels. And when you really get good at a level, then they
Mhm.
make it faster and harder. So
Oh,
you have to
fun. Thank
yeah,
you.
I mean, they continually challenge your brain,
Yeah.
continually. And I feel like it's the best brain rehab I
Mhm.
have.
Yeah.
It's made a huge difference, and they have
Mhm.
articles on brain fog. It's a
Mhm.
great resource center. They have
Mhm.
recipes. They have
Yeah.
all different kind of research
Yeah.
there. And the games are subscription. It's
Mhm.
$96 a year. You can use them,
Mhm.
they do have you can use them as many times as you want. I
Mhm.
usually do 3 to 4 days a week because they end up
Mhm.
taking about an hour, especially if I'm
Oh,
having a hard
wow.
time, they take about an
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
If I'm doing okay, it's a lot
Yeah.
faster.
Well, I
But
have a question. I think it's interesting that you started talking about long COVID because I have a client, a Pilates client of mine who had long COVID, and
mhm.
she was an actress.
Ah,
And but once I we started getting her moving,
mhm.
it's like she told me that she was able to remember lines from movies and stuff because of her movement.
Yes,
And I
yes.
was like, wow, that's, I mean, the first time she came in, she burst into tears.
Aw,
And I
I
said,
know,
oh,
it's
what's
awful.
wrong? And she goes, this is the first time I've been able to move in
Oh,
months.
yeah.
And I was like, wow, so she's, I haven't seen her because um, she has a part in a movie. But when she told me that, I was like, wow, you keep getting this feedback, and you don't really know sometimes if it's getting through to people.
Right, right.
And they tell you something like that, and you're like, yes.
I know, I know. I get this every now and then. I get those little, I
Mhm.
can and movement is so important for your brain. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. It
Yes.
definitely is. And I can see, um, you know, getting
Mhm.
rid of some of the fog because now the fog it's an inflammation. And
Yes.
so if you're decreasing inflammation
Mhm.
underscores everything. I do a lot of
Mhm.
work about inflammation because people just think of it as, you hurt yourself, you got a cut and it gets red.
Yes.
You don't
Yes.
think of inflammation that it underscores everything that's
Mhm.
going wrong in your body. And our
Yes.
diet's one of the worst things ever in
Mhm.
this country. But it is, you have surgery and you have anesthesia. And the older you get, the harder it is for your brain to recover
Brain.
from the anesthesia.
Yes. I've seen that too.
Yeah.
Not with me, but with clients who have had a spouse that they had two back-to-back surgeries and had used anesthesia, and they said, well, we don't want to put him under again so soon because it can mess with your brain.
Yes, definitely.
Hmm.
Also had brain surgery back in 2012,
Hmm.
and that was terrible coming back from that. I did all the brain stuff
Hmm.
before then. I knew all
Yeah.
the brain stuff, and yet I couldn't use my brain.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to come back,
Hmm.
but, doing
And
the rehab
look at you
exercise.
now, you're here.
Yeah, yeah, and, I mean, I get excited about it, so and
Hmm.
I can't imagine not having this because I keep finding more things I wanna research about this.
Hmm.
And the research is coming out fast now. So it's
Yeah,
it's
that's
incredible
good.
what they're
Yeah.
learning.
Hmm.
And, it's just the basics for all of us, but if you live
Hmm.
that lifestyle. Oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you, which is really important, is sleep. You have to get
Oh,
good
that's
sleep. There's 2
huge.
things that happen when you sleep.
Mhm.
That's when the hippocampus, encodes your
Mhm.
memories. Everything that you brought in during
Mhm.
the day, It it does a review and it sees if there's anything
Mhm.
similar and it will consolidate those 2 memories. And so the signal will
Yes.
be stronger, you'll be able to pull that one up better. It won't
Mhm.
exactly be exactly the same memory. But
Yeah.
the other thing that happens when we sleep is we have a cleaning system in our brain
Mhm.
called the glymphatic system, and it's cerebral spinal fluid surges through it
Mhm.
while we're sleeping and cleans our brain. It
I
can get
love
rid
that.
of some new amyloid that
Mhm.
haven't stuck yet, or
Yes.
cell debris or toxins, or
Mhm.
if you don't sleep and your brain doesn't get a good
Mhm.
cleaning, you're really in trouble. And
Yeah.
so it's important to sleep is really important to brain health.
Yeah, I have a speaker that's going to come on here within the next few days that's talking about sleep, and
Right.
another one, Dr. Mandy Patterson, who's talking about the microbiome. So all of these are
Yeah,
huge.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Patricia,
wonderful that
where
you're
can,
getting these pieces because
yeah.
each part of the brain healthy lifestyle does a different thing.
Yes.
So you have to do them all to get the
Mhm.
best benefit, but
Mhm.
each part of it does something different. Socialization creates
Mhm.
the most cognitive reserve.
Yeah. Who
And
knew?
that's another thing that's hardwired in us. We are
Yeah.
meant to be with other people.
Patricia, if is looking for you or needs your help, what have you got coming up? What kind of things can they get connected to so they can learn more about how to keep their brain healthy?
Well, I don't have anything scheduled right now.
Mhm.
I am I've got a brain health page, my Boomer Brain page on Facebook,
Mhm.
but I have a newsletter that I send out once a
Mhm.
month that talks about I've been writing blogs since
Mhm.
2015.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they're not all on the website, but
Mhm.
lots of blogs. And am starting to announce what's coming up right now. I just did a ton of presentations. So now I'm in a dry period. Now it's like regrouping and and
Mhm.
start marketing to get out
Mhm.
there. I'm having some discussions with somebody else. We might be collaborating where we
Mhm.
might do some joint coaching.
Mhm.
And if anybody is interested in doing individual coaching with me, that's available too. So let me give you my contact information that they can email me.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to give you my phone number because I get so many calls, I don't
Yes,
answer
please
them.
don't. Please don't.
Yeah, I know.
Socials, yes. Email, yes. Not your phone number.
Right, right. So you can email me at Patricia at myboomerbrain.com. And you
Mhm.
can also check out the website and see what it's about. We've been maneuvering it a little bit. I published the book it was a year ago, June the 6th,
Mhm.
that the Boomer Brain book went out.
Mhm.
And everything I've talked about is in that book.
Mhm.
We've got the whole brain
Nice.
healthy lifestyle is in
Mhm.
that book. That's chapter 8. And
Mhm.
it goes, and I made it friendly because I was reading reviews of the top experts in brain health, and
Mhm.
people were raving about it, but then they said it was too sciencey and it was
Yeah.
too much science. And so I
Mhm.
wanted to make this friendly because everybody gets upset about this anyway. And so this is more
Absolutely.
friendly book with lots
Yeah.
of examples of what I'm talking
Mhm.
about. And then I give you
Mhm.
ways to get started on the brain healthy lifestyle. But I have to tell you, it's over all that information is overwhelming and it is
Mhm.
hard to figure out how to get started on it by yourself.
Mhm.
And so I can do coaching on that. And
Yeah.
so to get wrapped up and work through
Mhm.
some of the problems of, I
Mhm.
just don't get it or what's happening here and
Mhm.
just stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
do individual coaching also. So if
Patricia, one last question.
yes.
We've got about 30 seconds.
Okay.
What motivates you to continue your work in the brain? I think it's fascinating, but what motivates you to stay just on top of this? It sounds like you love it.
I do love it. And I see what it can do.
Mhm.
And I have friends that are in memory care. And it's
Mhm.
like, I can't stand that. And I don't want anybody to
Mhm.
go through that.
Right.
And, people think, well, it's too late. It's
Mhm.
never too late
Never
to
too
change your
late.
brain.
Yeah,
It never,
absolutely.
ever. And so
Yeah.
I get motivated to try to
Mhm.
make them see. I want them to see
Mhm.
what they can do.
Well, Patricia, thank you so much for being here today and talking about the brain. Anyone watching, this was fascinating conversation. I feel like we could have gone a whole nother hour, but this was day 2. Day 3, I'm going to have Jill Quinn. She's going to be talking about perimenopause and menopause. Again, give us your questions. Patricia, thank you so much.
Well,
I
thank
may
you
call
for
you back next year.
oh, please. Thank you. I love this. I really appreciate you
Mhm,
having me on. I love this.
mhm.
So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. You're welcome. So until tomorrow, you guys, day 3. See you
Bye,
later.
everyone.
Bye.